Welcome to Leveling Up Mental Health, a podcast where we explore the intersection
of video games and mental health.
I am Andrew.
I am Adolyn.
And together we are
Best friends.
I'm also a psychologist.
And I'm also not a psychologist.
And
No, that's it.
That's it.
No, I'm also an actor and a cognitive scientist.
There we go. On this episode, we interview Andrea Fong.
Yes.
About video games and mental health overall. We
Yep.
talk about, she shares about her personal experience. We talk about the female gamer's perception of mental health and particularly experiences in online gaming. So we cover a lot of different topics. I thought it's going to be a really, really cool episode. I'm excited for people to see it.
Andrew Fong is a provisional psychologist based in Lethbridge right now, but born and raised in Calgary and has done all of her training at the University of Calgary, which then moved on to University of Lethbridge. So we have someone who's talking about their personal experience, but also coming from a place of amazing scholarly expertise.
That's right. Yeah. So once again, we talked to a smart person
Because we're not.
We were the dumbest.
We're the dum-dums.
Yeah, that's right. So on to the interview.
On to the interview. Well, hello and welcome. Today we are so excited to have Andrea Fong, a provisional psychologist who's based out of Alberta, here with us to talk about mental health and the intersection of video games with a specific focus on the female perception. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here too. I'm so glad to talk about video games and mental health.
So we want to start off by just getting a little introduction of who you are. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background in psychology, and we'd love to hear stuff about Calgary.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I was born and raised in Calgary. My parents are both from Hong Kong. I did my undergrad at the University of Calgary in psychology, and then I ended up doing my master's of education in counseling psychology at the University of Lethbridge. But I was actually in Calgary at that time because this was over COVID.
Oh, right. So you did the whole remote thing.
Yes, I did the remote master's degree. And thankfully, by the time that I was in my practicum, COVID restrictions had already it was a bit more open. So I was able to do my practicum in Calgary as well. Right now, I'm currently doing my provisional hours as a provisional psychologist in Edmonton.
Awesome. And you are also, like us, a fan of video games. Is that right?
Yes, I've played video games since as long as I can remember. Even like before I could actually like play the video games or like had my own console, I was watching my own siblings play games, playing from their Game Boy Color, playing from their own like little boxy computer, playing the Worms Revolution.
What was the first video game you remember seeing your siblings play?
I think it was not World of Warcraft, it was Warcraft. It was the one where they had a bunch of different game styles. And then I remember my sister playing sheep tag. That was a very clear memory. And then she would just always like to build these she had to prepare herself for the wolves in a sense.
Is that the StarCraft era Warcraft? Like the Warcraft 3?
I don't quite remember, but it was within that genre as well. It was also it was also around that time that it was like Dota. Dota 2.
Oh yeah. That was probably because I remember I had a friend who was super into Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
And that they had all these custom game modes that became more popular than the base game mode itself. What was your favorite game growing up, and what's your current favorite game?
Oh, that's a hard one. Like
I know.
growing up, I think before I got my own PC, it was definitely the Nintendo 64, and then playing Smash Bros. Because that was the game that brought a lot of people together. It brought my cousins together. My siblings would play it with me. Even to an extent, my family, my parents at one point attempted it too. So growing up, it would probably be, Nintendo 64, Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart. As of right now, where more games are more like Steam-based, or either that or you're playing on the Switch or the Steam Deck. I think I still find myself really drawn to the original Dragon Age Origins.
Oh, a classic.
okay.
Let's just go down this rabbit hole for like 30 minutes. Why that one? What still draws you to that? Even with all, there have been what, 3 sequels now? Why that one?
It's just I really like that grim, dark setting, even though it's quite old. So the actual textures and the appearance of it is quite dated, but it's just the very nice, dark and gritty setting. And then you got a couple of companions, and all the companions are so well developed. The dialogue is presented so well, and then it's so engaging because yeah, you have these choices with each of like their specific story plot point areas, and there are these choices that really affect your overall experience because they affect the outcome. And I just really enjoy that when your own actions in a video game affect the outcome. Like it can go many ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is a really great game. It makes me think of we actually talked about this in a previous interview, how when I play choice based games, I can never make evil choices. Even if I try to go through an evil playthrough, I will always be the good person. What's been your experience of that? Can you be evil?
I think it's about like for me, it's about being a certain character going in there because well, I can't be evil in real life, right? I can't
Well,
go
of
out and
course
stab
not.
people. But in the game itself, though, if I felt like it, like there's like that aspect of role play. I also like D
Yeah.
and D because of that too. That
Oh,
aspect of the
fantastic.
role
I love
play.
D&D.
So with Dragon Age, which is like in a sense a D&D game, but like for myself, single player D&D, it's just like, oh, what if I want to make like this bloodthirsty, angry elf that just wants to stab people with a knife all the time and just go straight to murder? And then seeing the consequences of it, seeing how the companions react to it, seeing how it affects the outcome, how people in the NPCs like view that character. I just think that's so interesting compared to, yeah, going the very good. I want to make the evil choices, but I'm going through that same good path. I can't say no. I can't say no.
Andrew, you must love Baldur's Gate 3 then. Did you
Oh
play?
yeah, I
Yeah.
had it since early
Yeah. Because
access.
if you're talking about bloodthirsty elf who wants to stab people, I'm thinking Astarion all the way, right? So,
For sure.
who did you play as? What was your? Have you done the Dark Tav route in Baldur's Gate? Have you done,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
evil playthrough? Yeah.
I haven't finished my Dark Tav route yet.
Oh, okay.
I started out because I also really like bards. They're so
Oh yeah, of
charismatic.
course.
I just like the persuading someone to die and then persuading them to do good. That's so fun
You
and
sound
so
like the
funny to
complete
me.
opposite of Andrew.
I know.
Yeah. Andrew's role playing is, well, how much more good could I do in the game?
Oh,
Not always, okay?
are you Mr. Paladin?
I do like paladins, though. In Baldur's Gate, my main character is a ranger.
Which is the paladin of the forest, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I didn't know you played D&D and that you like Baldur's Gate, because those are like one of my two biggest pastimes. Like I have so many sunk hours in Baldur's Gate and Dungeons and Dragons. Are you doing a campaign right now?
No, I've actually only like I follow a lot of the D&D stuff, but I don't actually have a group that does D&D with me. Like I've only played it like once. It's just a lot of that is like time management as well as like people as well. You need to find the people that can have the right alignment in your time. And
Good
it's
use
just
of the
really
word
hard.
alignment.
Yeah.
Nice D&D reference. Nice. Should we talk about science and
I
psychology?
feel like I had a question and then I completely blanked what my question was. There you go.
I got you.
You got
I
it.
got you. I could talk to you about games and all. We both could, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
will.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I'm interested in what got you into psychology, because obviously you probably could have been a professional gamer with all these interests.
Ooh, that's a hard one because I couldn't be a professional gamer without my parents looking at me going, "You want to be homeless?" Like even with like psychology, they're already like,
I know.
"What's that? That's not even real." Because like yeah, coming from like an East Asian background, even an Asian
Right.
background, your parents are like, "Mental health? You're just lazy."
Yep. Yep.
But I think the idea of psychology came about roughly around like, yeah, high school, where I just had a lot of trouble understanding a lot of the motivations and like the actions that my friends or like other people would commit to. And I just randomly took a psychology course in high school, and I was just like, you know what? This makes sense. All of this makes sense. And then I was just like, I didn't know what to do for university. I was like, you know what? Psychology sounds cool. If all else fails, at least that I can do something that's cool. So I went into psychology in undergrad as well. Of course, there's also some underlying like aspects in my high school that I didn't actually identify right away. Like some nowadays I would see it's like, oh, it's high functioning depression. Or there was also a level of like addiction that was involved as well in my high school days. But as like a high schooler and as a teen, I wasn't even thinking about that at all. But yeah, growing up and then going through undergrad and then going through a master's and then being, yeah,
Yeah.
currently a professional psychologist. I'm like, oh, that's what was going on.
Yeah, you gain that insight years later of, oh, yeah, I recognize some things in my own
Yeah.
story.
No, thank
Hmm.
you for sharing that. I think a lot of us, not everyone, but anyone who's interested in the psychology field or the mental health field generally have experienced some form of adverse mental health and feel like, a passion towards learning about it or helping people through it. So, yeah, that's awesome. Um, was there a specific class in psychology that you're like, yeah, this is it, like developmental or personality or something like that? And you were like, yes, this excites me.
It's usually the clinical stuff is the one that's exciting when you're
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, the diagnosis is the anxiety, the depression. I think, yeah, with all a lot of social media now too, all the youths know like what's up. They're all just like, oh, depression, anxiety, I
I
have
know.
PTSD, and then they're
Yeah.
self-diagnosing. But that's honestly the stuff that's so interesting because that's the stuff that, oh, it gives you clarity on like why you feel certain ways or like why you behave in certain ways and why that might be different from other people.
Absolutely. I remember really liking those classes too. Although at the same time, I think it gave me some anxiety as you're learning about different things. You're like, oh, is that me? Do I have that? Is this me? Oh, I kind of relate to that. Oh my God, I have everything. So, I had to work through that a little bit. But otherwise, I really liked that course too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So our podcast is interested in the intersection of video games and mental health, and I think there's a lot of ways they intersect and overlap and influence each other. But what's been some of your experience with that overlap of video games and mental health?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think being like I identify as female and I am a woman. And then sometimes when I present myself online, especially when I was younger, I didn't think that much about putting my username. So you might have like okay, so one of my cute usernames was like XD Cheesecake XD. So you automatically think, oh, it's so cute. It must be a girl that's behind like that. And then you get treated a little bit different because they think that you're a girl, they or perceive you as a girl. Sometimes it could be like overly positive and like they're like, oh, you're doing so like you just get that sense of they're just saying so much. So many of these comments just, oh, all these flowery comments are sent your way. You're doing so well. Wow, you're the best. You're the best. You're the best. And then there's the complete opposite where it's just like, oh my God, go make me a sandwich. Or women shouldn't be playing video games. Girls shouldn't be go playing video games. Go play with your dolls. And some of those come in. Of course, when I think about playing like the online games, like League of Legends, some of that comes from low hanging fruit. I think that's something that came about in my own research paper as well. Like some of that, the targeting of the gender is just low hanging fruit when you're very angry and you're very mad.
Mm,
But some of that is also some of that internalized, like, oh, women shouldn't be in the gaming space as well.
yeah.
Yeah. And you wrote a full research paper as part of your program in your master's program about the female perception of mental health in video games. Can you talk a little bit more about your study and some of the things you maybe found?
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there is, of course, it's like it's been established in like the early 2000s that the gaming space was for boys only. That's what was advertised on like the magazines. On any time that video games pop up, there'd be like some sort of like buff warrior saving the princess, or there'd be tanks and guns. So it's very, yeah, boy centric. But of course, things have changed now. I think the ratio is like 52% male and 47% female for gamers, somewhere around the line. So it's like evened out now. And yeah, there are more women that are getting into that space. So I was curious to see, because there are a lot of benefits to video games, that like things like the community, things like loneliness, social support, stress relief that come about from video games. So I was seeing if, because of the being a woman in that gaming space, do you still get those same benefits? Or do you have to do things differently when it comes to the gaming space, especially with like multiplayer and online games that do have the microphone, like Call of Duty, or I think
Hmm.
League of Legends has some voice chat now these days as well, but even the text box chats.
Yeah, yeah, the quick chats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was your interest in that because of your own experiences as well? Like, is that kind of what took you down that path of wanting to research it?
A part of it is like when I think it was quite a long time ago, but I was still a minor at that time. I was a
Hmm.
minor, and there was a moment where I met somebody online, and that person happened to be a very grown adult. He
Hmm.
was a grown adult male, and he was coming on to me, and then he had reached out and asked for like my social media accounts. He asked to do like face-to-face Skype, using Skype at that
Skype. Yeah.
time. But using Skype at that time. And then at
Yeah.
that time, like as a young girl, I wasn't thinking too hard about it. Like, oh, he says such nice things to me. He says that I'm so mature. He says all these nice things. And then I don't know what exactly clicked into me, but someday I was just like, you know what, this isn't going down a very nice road. And then so I blocked him on everything without any other communication. Just blocked, deleted everything. I even stopped playing that game that we were playing together. So a part of that comes into that research paper. I'm like, oh, being a girl kind of, it's different. The space is different when playing video games online.
Hmm.
Yeah, one of the things you touch on in your paper is that uh, a lot of things that happen to video games kind of reflect sort of our societal norms around misogyny and how women are generally treated. But then there's this added layer of anonymity where people can feel like they're protected behind their avatar or their, gamer tag. Do you feel things get exacerbated more in the video game world because of those things?
I think with the anonymity, yeah, you feel a little bit more bold because you know that there won't be any consequences if I say these mean things, or if I do certain things online. So I do believe that, yeah, the anonymity does add a layer of, yeah, being able to do the things that I want to do without regards to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an interesting thing to think about when you're on the other side of it. It's always those things you don't necessarily pay attention to. Like one of the things, and you can correct me if I get this wrong. This is your thesis. I'm not going to assume I know everything about it, but I think one of the things you've found, or one of the things you write about in it, is that the majority of female identified gamers will get asked about their gender,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which like on its own you can think is just a small thing, but when you really think about it, like, do the majority of male gamers get asked about their gender? Probably not. And so it's just one of those things that what to somebody might seem an innocuous thing is actually another way that you're kind of being, I don't know, othered, or
Othered. Yeah. Yeah.
like, you think about, often people get annoyed when they're asked about some aspect of who they are over and over and over and over. And so that kind of plays out there. And that was like, you had a number of results that were kind of like that showed quite a significant, like the majority of experiences that female identified gamers had.
Mhm. For sure. And I think when I did that research, there was a couple that I'd interviewed as well. So it wasn't just like the quantitative, there was also the qualitative aspect where I did an interview with them to see what their perceptions were like. And yeah, they do get annoyed by being asked that. They do feel that sense of otherness, and they don't feel comfortable like sharing these things online. They're just like, oh, what are you going to do with that kind of information? It makes them more stressed. In a sense, it did increase some levels of stress for them, which required them to kind of manage their identities online as well, making a more gender neutral or a more masculine username, or not using any of the voice chat whatsoever, and being absolutely not using the voice chat, or even just not playing online. People choose to just, I only play with my friends because I just wanted to be the most comfortable that I could be.
Yeah. What would you say were some of the most interesting or important findings from your thesis? Things that we can take away from, learn from in the gaming space?
I think a part of what interested me, my final results, were some of the interviews where they didn't really see themselves as, there was like a portion that saw like, oh yeah, it's scary being online. I don't want to like, yeah, be identified as female. There's a sense of danger. But there's also another sense of like, I guess when they set their own expectations coming into the game, it helps to manage some of their stress. They're like, oh, well, like I think I mentioned earlier when they're saying like, oh, they're just attacking my gender. It's just a low-hanging fruit. If it wasn't my gender, they would say other things too. Like, I think it also depends on the game as well. Like I just remember clearly one of the interviews that I had, she was playing more, yeah, shooter games where there's probably more like the action and the probably more male dominance on the shooting games. And then she was just like, I just expect to be treated like garbage
Wow.
because and then when they attack their gender, she doesn't see it as like, oh, it's othering me. It just happens to be part of the game. The trash talking is part of the game. So that
Right.
part was interesting to me. So sometimes it's about like how they go in, what kind of expectations they come in with in those games. If you don't expect to be harassed for being a female, but suddenly you're harassed by being a female,
Mm,
then it becomes, yeah, it becomes more stressful because you didn't expect it.
Mm.
right. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's a very interesting finding. Basically, what you're saying is if you manage your perceptions going into the environment, and so if you know this is going to be a toxic environment, then you're actually buffered from the effects of the stress or the frustration or the pain of that hurt. But if you don't know, there's like a sense of betrayal or a sense of surprise, which amplifies sort of the pain around that. But at the same time, it feels almost like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we've gotten to this point where we've made these cultures allowable. Like, even hearing you say, like, shooter games, it's expected, competitive games is expected. I have personally been on the receiving end of it too, and it stays with you, right? You finish the game and you go, oh, well, that was a miserable experience. And if it wasn't for the game loop itself bringing me back in, I definitely won't necessarily come back in for the community. Do you feel like there's some systemic things we need to be discussing around some of this stuff? Because you mentioned some of those things in your study as well.
Hmm. I do think that the community plays a big part in how like yeah how you might feel or how you even might become treated, especially with the people that are at the higher ups. I think with my experience in League of Legends, it was it was very straining. Even with playing with friends, it was very straining because I felt that burden of like, oh, if I screw up, then the whole team is screwed. So going into that, I was just like, oh, but this was for me in high school at that time it was my only means of making friends. It was League of Legends because that was 90% of the conversations that we had. It was just League of Legends, League of Legends. So I didn't like the game because of the burden that and the strain and the stress that it brought me, but I couldn't stop because that's where all my social support, all my friends came from that. So after when I completely cut out League from my life, I remember I remember that fear. It was like the withdrawal from like addiction. It was
Yeah.
just like the shaking. I dreamt about League. I dreamt about what happens if I didn't play League, about the friends that I would lose. I was physically shaking.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Would you like? Would you say that you were? Would you see it as an addiction? Would you say you were addicted to League?
Oh yeah, it the way that it impacted my life, my sleep schedule, my being able to get through class. I would say that it was an addiction. But of course it wasn't like a severe high levels of addiction, but
Mm.
it was a starting point because I would neglect my homework. I would yeah, I didn't. basically had a poor relationship with my family. Every time my mom and dad was like, get off the computer, get off the computer. What are you doing? Like, I'd be like,
Right.
shut up, mom. You don't know anything.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need
You
to
don't
win at least one
understand.
game tonight.
Yeah.
I
I
need to at
can't just
least win.
unplug it.
Yeah.
I think it might be important to differentiate what constitutes an addiction for our listeners and things like that. So, at what point, if someone's listening, they're like, am I addicted to this? Or if parents are worried, what do you think is that threshold, or how do we define that?
I think a part of it comes from how much it's impacting your life and can you actually stop from it.
Hmm.
But of course, there's also the DSM version, which I would probably need to pull up.
Right.
There's no own DSM version, but it's about how functional you are. I think even the DSM would say, like, how functional are you? Can you stop? If
Hmm.
you stop doing this, will there be side effects?
Right.
It's a common thing for people who are really into games to dive into them deeply, right? And it's not inherently bad. It doesn't mean you're automatically addicted. But yeah, some of those questions around impairment, is it getting in the way of your functioning as a human? So school, work, relationships, those kind of pieces. But I
Yeah.
know even that becomes a bit of a complicated issue because I think, in the DSM, I think they still have it under like disorders for further study or something. So it's like
Yes.
in there, but not in there,
Right.
So it's,
Not for the video games is like, yeah, kind of in
yeah,
there, kind of not.
Yeah.
They're still figuring it out.
yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting, complicated thing.
Well, and you played League of Legends, which is now also categorized as an esport. There's competitive and non-competitive versions of playing the game, and many games are now transitioning into this sort of esports environment. And a lot of these kids under like minors under the age of 18 are expected to play like they're athletes. So would you say that level of commitment, maybe in a sort of general definition, like that's kind of an addiction, but perhaps it's no different than, an Olympic marathon runner practicing every single day. Do you feel like there's a bit of a stigma around that? Because I feel like sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day there's a little bit more of a stigma around that versus working out for 8 hours a day, where both of those things might still interfere with your day-to-day sleep or friendships and things like that.
No, I think that's a good point to make as well. Because I think there is not just, I guess, if we're wanting to think about the stigma, there is also the possibility of being addicted to the sport as well. There are sports psychologists as well, and also athletes who will train themselves to the point that they will break because they're not maintaining themselves. Of course, I'm not a sports psychologist, so that's not quite the field that I delve in, but I do know that there are people who would like train to the point that they would break themselves, but they'll still keep wanting to. They'd be like, when can I get back? When can I get back in?
Mhm.
I need to know as soon as possible because maybe that's how their identity is formed as well. Especially when athletes, they're trained at a young age to be able to compete at that Olympic level. So their
Right.
whole identity, their whole formation is just like around surrounding that sport. If I can't do the sport, what is the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So I think it can be similar.
absolutely. It's a very interesting thing. I've worked with some athletes where that identity piece does come into it, right? Where they were high level athletes until an injury or something, or kind of aged out to some degree, and
Yeah.
then that was a huge piece that they struggled with. Is like, who am I now? This defined my life, my main pursuit. It defined my social life
Mm-hmm.
because all I did was play the sport, and so all my friends were part of the sport. So I could see how that could translate as esports is becoming more and more common, and
Yeah.
I think it just speaks to how complex and nuanced it can be,
Yeah.
and that it's not as straightforward as this is problematic, this is addictive, and this isn't. I think it really really depends. What do you think? So with your experience with League of Legends, what do you think took you down that path of becoming more addicted to it? You said part of it was like maybe the social connection. You felt like most of your friendships were part of that, but yeah, what do you think it was that hooked you, I guess?
I think the big part of it was the social connections, as well as how flashy and pretty like the game looked as well.
Yeah.
You could have
Dopamine hits.
skins, the
Crush your
dopamine hits,
enemies. Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
like in the same sense, like gambling, right? You lose, but then you're just like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
if I play one more, I'll just play until like I win, right? And then you
Yeah.
win, and then you're just like, oh, I can play like
Yeah.
one more, and then you have to
Yeah.
like recomp when you lose. You're just like, oh no, I just need one more to like recomp, and I'll be done for the night. But then you keep
Can't end
going.
on a loss. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
know that
can't end.
experience. Yeah. Can't end on a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So so that was it. And then I'm curious, you talked about identity. You obviously found your way out of it. Was it because you found a newer sense of community, or if you feel comfortable sharing that experience of having to rip away from it?
I think it was to some extent my friends as well. Some of them, not all of them, but a couple of them had already started pulling away. They're saying, I don't want to play as much anymore. And then they started thinking about more seriously, like, oh, like we're going to be graduating soon. I think this was around early grade 11 at that time when I started quitting and started thinking, oh, you're right. Like, my grades aren't that great. If I keep going down this path, like, I'm bronze or like I'm silver. I don't remember at that time what I was, but bronze or silver. I'm not like an athlete level. Like, can I even get to that athlete level of like, because at that time they were doing the esports and it was starting to grow. It was starting to grow at that time. So I'm like, can I get to that level? And then my thought process, like, I can't. So I think a lot of it was like a self-reflection, as well as seeing a couple people, having some examples of people that are okay with withdrawing from the game, and then
Right.
seeing how their life played out as well, and how they're still able to maintain the friendships.
So you were in grade 11. Do you feel like there's anything your parents could have done or said, or do you think it would have done the opposite?
I think if that's mm, probably not quite what they could
Yeah.
do, because I
Yeah.
think a part of they could also be considered, yeah, some of that rebellious, teenager stage,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
No matter what they're gonna say, you're gonna be like, you're wrong, you're
Yeah.
wrong,
I'm going to
you're
do what
wrong.
I want, mom and
Mm-hmm.
dad.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you said you kind of had to withdraw yourself totally from the game. Have you like do you ever come back to it, or has it been that's one game you never touch?
I did try to come back to it actually. I didn't remember my siblings were like, "Hey, I want to like play League again." And then it was around undergrad, around the end of undergrad, I think. And I was just like, "Well, just try it out to see how it feels." And I remember starting it up, and then my heart was beating so fast, and then I
Oh yeah.
started sweating, and then I was just like, "No, I don't think I can come back to this.
Shut
Wow.
it
I
down.
have
That's
such a bad
interesting.
reaction to
You had a
it."
real physiological response
Yeah,
to it.
that's
Yeah.
really
hmm
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
hmm
Yeah.
But it sounds like it wasn't a total like you didn't give up games completely.
Oh no.
Did that ever cross your mind where you're like, do I need to just quit video games, or was it very always just specific to League?
It was always specific to League because
Right.
I think it was the stress that came from it. Like I knew that it was a different type of stress than if I were to play like Animal Crossing or something.
A little bit of a different pace of game there. Yeah.
No one's yelling at me in Animal Crossing.
True. True.
So in one of the papers that we had chosen to discuss, they mentioned that these games. It seems like some of these games will elicit like increased arousal, right? But that may not necessarily be aggression. And it may not be because of the game itself. It may be some community or something else related. Do you think games like League and things like that leave you frustrated or more aggressive afterwards, and there's like a lasting effect that people need to be aware about? Or do you think it's just so game specific and it dissipates over like very quickly?
I think going back to the identity piece, it depends how much you put that game into your own identity. I think some people who make it part of their personality, they would become frustrated and they'll be frustrated for a long time because they just can't, they're just like, if only my team was better, if I could have gone, maybe that one ranked game would have been the game that decided whether they ranked up or not. And if they lost that game, then I'm sure that they'll be frustrated for quite a bit.
Yeah, well, and I know your thesis talked a bit about like one of the results I was interested in was that lingering effect of did negative emotions stay with them or stress stay with female gamers, especially after negative experiences. And it sounds like for some that was the case, where it wasn't necessarily about the game, but it was about what were the interactions they were having, and that left them kind of lingering with a negative feeling. Is that right?
For sure. Yeah, I think it has to an extent they can generalize it a little bit more. That feeling can be generalized, that oh, that sense of danger. Or for some people, they can just cut it off completely if they know for sure that, oh, it's just the game. It's just the game. Like, how much meaning are you putting into those interactions? What do those interactions mean for that individual person? Does that mean that, oh gosh, I can't play this game ever again because I've had too many bad experiences with it? Or is it somebody who's just like, eh, I've already
Right.
set my expectations that it's stressful. I know it's stressful. I know that I can't win all the time, but I'm just here because I just like shooting people, maybe. I like shooting people. I
Yeah.
like stabbing people.
Yeah.
Maybe they just like it for that.
I like making food for people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like
nice.
solving mysteries. That's interesting you bring this up because you're touching on some of the other papers that we were connecting on, which is the digital gaming relationship, or like kind of this new model of understanding players' views and gaming relationship, which is we used to want to say conclusively. We did this one study, and now conclusively, this is how all gamers feel about everything. But now it feels as if it's like, no, the individual experience matters so much, and what your intention is, your expectation is, and what meaning you derive from it. Where do you think like gaming research is going now? Like, do you think we're going to be looking at more individualistic effects, or and more like individual gaming effects on different things, or do you think it's still quite generalizable?
I think that it could go in both ways. I'm not too sure because just with how like AI is developing, I think that that also adds another layer to how we respond to games as well. Like oftentimes we're like, oh, can we like people being able to have more interactions with certain NPCs, like making those NPCs more complicated or like even developing relationships with those NPCs as well. Like how much can I think that it can add more meaning to like say like a side quest or something, like having somebody that's AI generated and AI generated their background to the point that it's a very complicated story that you feel really
Right.
connected to, you feel very emotional towards. So there adds another layer of like that interaction as well.
Do you think developers have this responsibility to understand like our own stories of connection to the game, so the positive side, but then also the potential for further harm, like addictions and things like that? Do you think they should be thinking about these things?
I think it's more about managing the community rather than managing the addictions themselves. If the community is fostering something that is more of a, like a toxic community like League, that there's not much moderation and people kind of like their anger and their frustration translates like gets passed on to other people and they get more frustrated with each other. So they're in like a sparring match. I think that that part is a little bit more about like what the developers should be worried about. Like what kind of community are you fostering? Like how are you moderating your own communities versus like that addiction piece? Because yeah, with addictions, and we mentioned that there's a lot of pieces that come into play with that, like how
Right.
their own life is, how their identity is forming as well.
Yeah, great answer. I like
Yeah,
that.
I
That's
know.
good.
That's a really good one.
I think like I don't know. One of my takeaways from this conversation and from reading the research and all of that is just the complexity of it all, and hopefully future research acknowledges more and more of that complexity. Again, one of those papers we were looking at, and I don't have any of the authors memorized, but we put a reference list at the end of our episode so people can look if they need to. But one of them talked about their kind of thesis of the paper was that it's this false dichotomy that's been getting researched of are video games beneficial or are they harmful? Do video games cause violence or are pro social games helpful? And they kind of said, we actually don't think that's the question we should be asking because it's not that simple. It's not that linear, and that it's actually this kind of like we were saying, it's this complex relationship where even just one complex piece of that is the meaning we are attributing to a game. And there's all these other pieces. Would you like, do you kind of align with that view? Do you feel like this has been a false dichotomy? Is it even worth asking that question?
I think it's worth, as like from a researcher standpoint, everything is worth like asking about.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah,
is
Fair. Good
worth
point.
looking into. Otherwise, we wouldn't know whether it's like, is this like a dead end that we're heading
Hmm.
into? Because we won't be able to know if it's a dead end if we haven't gone to that way yet.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, it is worth to research that way. And I think it's also worth researching. Maybe it's not a false dichotomy, but that's just the researcher mind. That's just the researcher mind. Like anything works. We don't know anything.
That's a good answer. That's true. We should be asking every question
As a research
as a
question.
research
But
question.
what do you think personally? Are video games the hero or the villain?
I think they're a tool.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like a lot of forms of entertainment, right? It's just like how much we derive the meaning from it, how much we care about it. I think for me, video games are a big part of my identity, and I think I'd be pretty lost without it because it provides me, for me, when I see it, it's like, oh, it helps me. It's a part of my escapism. Like I don't need to work up, I don't need to think about like an adult. I can
Hmm.
just be an elf, or I can just
Hmm.
play. I can be a robot. I was playing Repo recently with some friends. I could
Okay.
be a little robot just going treasure hunting and
Yeah.
facing some very scary big skeletons or like that floating skull thing. So I think, yeah, it's about how much we derive meaning from it, and it can be good and it can be bad as well. It can be good or bad depending on how we see it. It's bad for me because I had too much escapism in high school, but it's good for temporary relief. It's good for managing our day-to-day lives as well. It just depends on how we use it.
Well, and I appreciate that you can have that balanced view, even though you went through a really difficult experience with video games. That you can still recognize, okay, that was this, and also there's still a huge part of your life,
Mhm.
which I think is really cool. What would you say? So escapism is a big part of it. What would you say are some of the biggest benefits you personally get from playing video games?
Yeah, community as well. Like that's how I've still made lots of friends just talking about video games. Like I was able to connect with you too as well.
Yeah,
Just
that's
being
Absolutely.
true.
able to be in. So there's like the community aspect that's such a big part of it as well, especially when there are people that struggle to leave their own house or they're
Hmm.
struggle to go about with their daily life, and then being able to have like a temporary source of relief that comes from either talking to your friends, playing games with them, playing games with your friends, yeah, the temporary relief that comes from having to not think about the adult life. You can think about fun stuff instead. Or even if it is League of Legends, some people find it cathartic having that explosive energy put into a game, all your frustrations, all your anger. And then once you're done, okay, oh, I feel a little bit lighter. I can keep going through my day. So there is definitely the goods in that part, and I've completely forgotten what your question was.
No, that was it.
Yeah, you were answering
Okay,
it.
okay.
Oh, that was awesome. We always like to ask our guests, and you may say League of Legends because the question is worded as which game has the most impact on you growing up or currently in your life. But it can be a positive impact, you know.
Okay, if we were thinking about a positive impact, I would say Final Fantasy X.
Oh,
Tell us
Because
oh
more.
yes.
Talk
oh
about that
yeah.
Yes, we can.
for as long as you
Yeah, yeah,
want.
yes.
For sure. Yeah, so that was one of the games that I think my siblings were playing on the TV because it was a PS2 game. And then I remember first seeing the PS2 and I was like, wow, it's so black and shiny. At that time, I was like, all I have is this Game Boy Color. It's like this big. I kind of want that
Yeah,
as like a kid, right?
yeah,
And
of
then
course.
I watched my sister because it was, of course, Final Fantasy X is a one-player game. But I remember just sitting there and then watching my sister play through it. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful world. And like the music and then the voice acting. When I play Pokemon on my Game Boy, it's not the 3D pretty. It's not 3D pretty. There's no voice acting. There's not all that shininess, the cutscenes. And it was also a way for me to connect with my siblings. My siblings are like 10 plus years older than me. So it's hard to find something to talk about. But with video games, with the Final Fantasy X, I was able to kind of experience that story with my sister who was playing it at that time. And it really helped connect us and like bond us. So I think that is a video game that also had a big impact on me as well. It was also a really touching story.
Yeah, yeah, great game, great
Well, this
story.
was a really touching story. That's so beautiful. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
games bringing siblings together.
I love that.
Thank
That's
you for sharing
heartwarming.
that. Yeah, it is.
All right, now have you played all the final or most of the Final Fantasy games? Like, have you gotten into the series?
I stopped playing, I think it was when they did the Final Fantasy MMORPG, and then
Oh, okay.
I didn't play the
14?
ones that came
Yeah.
afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, is 10 your favorite, or did it just have the most impact on you?
I would say that it's the one that has the most impact on me. I think my favorite was the one actually don't it's hard to tell with the numbers sometimes. I don't
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
That's
yeah.
remember
true.
the
Yeah.
numbers like fully, but I like the one where the main character was a dark knight and then he eventually found like the light. It was a
Cyril.
very
I think
like
it's Final
yes,
Fantasy 4.
I
Yeah, yeah,
think it was four,
Wow.
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
impressive.
It's a good one. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, that
Nice.
was a fantastic one.
I'm curious. Have you come across this in your work as a professional psychologist at all? Like, have you worked with anybody that's struggling with video game addiction or the role games have played in their life?
Not addiction yet, but I have seen or I have worked with how video games can be a positive in someone's life. I think I also work with people who have chronic pain as well, or like they have some very strong health concerns that make it hard for them to do any other activities. And I think video game has helped them connect either like connect with other people online and to even like extend it forward, not just playing video games, playing the D&D. It helps them extend it because they have that shit. When you're playing an MMORPG, there is like some connections to it where you're just like, oh, you like story. Oh, you like building characters. Do you want to join our D&D group? And then someone joins the D&D group and then they're able to have like a spectacular time. So I think I've seen a lot of that where the social support aspect comes in where they find a lot of solace in playing games because that's how they connect with people because they can't physically in the body cannot do that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole I was like I could do a whole 1 more hour interview
I know.
talking about
So many
chronic pain
threads
and,
to pull on.
video games and ableism and things like that. That's amazing. I had such a fun time
Yeah.
talking to you about this. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Did you have any last words you wanted to say or anything you wanted to plug? How can people contact you? Any of those types of things if you want to put it out there.
Yeah, I think that um, yeah, I really enjoyed my time here on the podcast as well. Both of you are like such great conversationalists. I could keep talking too. I feel like we could talk all day about video games
Absolutely.
and mental health. And I think video games are great. I think there is, especially when video games are done with a lot of love. So not just like big corpos, but like the ones that are done with a lot of love. And to keep playing games to help, yeah, support that love, support that community, support that love. As for contacting me, um, I think a Google search. I know I'm on Psychology Today.
Yeah.
There you go. That
absolutely.
works.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. Yes.
Yeah, so just
Andrea
Andrea
Fong
Fong.
on. Yeah.
My face is on there. You can
Yeah.
also find my paper online if you search up. Yeah, I think you two will put it down in the
Yes.
resources as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, it'll be in
So
the reference list. Yeah. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It is Googleable.
It is Googleable.
It's
That's how I found
Googleable.
you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This was such a great conversation, and we hope to have you back on our podcast soon.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to continue our talk on video games and mental health, or
right.
mental health, or video games, whichever
Either
one
or.
singled
Yeah.
out.
Well, everyone, welcome back to Leveling Up Mental Health, our post-interview debrief.
Debrief.
Yes. We're so excited to talk about our conversation with Andrea Fong. I think what was really cool for me, just right off the bat, was just how open she was.
Yeah.
Just open to talking about her own experiences. I think that's a really great sign for probably a really good therapist when they're able to share their own experiences.
Yes, absolutely. I think somebody who's so willing to share about personal vulnerable experiences, like her experience with video game addiction, it makes for a great conversation.
Yeah.
We were interested and wanted to hear about it. And you're right. I think it does make for a good therapist. I bet she's great with her clients.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And, we joked about it in our intro that we were the dum-dums in the room. But for someone, I think it's different when someone talks about it from a point of expertise, which she obviously had, but then also about someone who's like, I've actually been through it.
Yeah.
There's like a different level of wisdom. And it's brave.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
It's hard. I mean, I find that too, that even if it's something in the past that I'm over or have worked through, there's still a level of, ooh, do I want to talk about this? Whether it's here or in therapy or something like that, it's vulnerable.
Totally.
And so just her willingness and confidence to say, yeah, here's my story. Here's what I learned from it. I think it gives, I don't want to say it gives like a credibility, because I don't want to say that people without that person's experience don't have credibility.
No, of course not.
But it does. It adds this duality of have the expertise, the expert knowledge, and also have this lived wisdom that she can speak from that place too.
Absolutely. So she talked about the female perception of video games, or the female experience of their mental health in video games. And because she was so brave, I was wondering if we could risk it biscuit a little bit.
Let's
here.
be brave.
Let's be brave.
Okay.
I'm curious about your mental health experience with video games, and if you've ever been part of any toxic cultures in the way that she talked about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something I've been thinking about a lot since we started the podcast, just running through my own different experiences and asking myself how have video games affected my mental health. We talked a bit about it in our first episode, but I think from an online gaming space particularly, I know, like, I don't engage in those spaces, and not anymore. I have in the past. Partly now it's just phase of life. I have like 20 minutes a day, maybe, if I'm lucky to play video games right now.
No time to troll.
That's right. No time to troll. But even when I had more time, I know that I consciously took that step away because I recognized it did affect me. I played a number of different online games, like World of Warcraft was a big one, but I also played some shooters like Counter-Strike. I played back when it was Counter-Strike 1.16, I think.
Oh, nice.
Before CSGO even came out.
CSGO,
And a lot of my positive experiences were playing with friends. And so I did get that connective piece where I'd have these shared experiences with these people that I was friends with. I'd see them at school, then we go home and turn on Counter-Strike or Diablo or something. And
which is what she talked about.
Right.
The community actually brought her in at first.
Exactly. But then there was also this element of when you were playing with strangers, it is a part of the culture of it, right? There's trash talk, and if you're making mistakes or screwing up or not playing well, somebody makes a comment about it. And I am very aware that I have thin skin. I really do.
Yeah, this man puts on a lot of sunscreen.
That's right.
A lot of sunscreen. Yeah.
I think I've built a thicker skin about things that are important, but I'm a sensitive person, and those comments did get to me, which, looking back, it feels strange because I can look at it now and say, well, those were strangers. Why did I care what they thought of me?
In a digital world. But I get it.
But it affected me, right? And, I'd make a mistake, and then there'd be all these comments with derogatory language around it, and it would affect me. I'd feel crappy. And so over time, I think I just realized that, because initially I thought, I just have to push through this. I got to toughen up. I got to deal with this. Or I got to be better. I got to be better at the game. And I think over time, at some point, I just got to the point where I realized this isn't for me. I also play with people. Like, we'll still play online, but I don't engage with strangers, I guess, online, just because I've realized it affects me, and that's not something I need to engage with.
Great answer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, very similar experiences when I've played online games. I never really got into the shooter culture, but I've played games like, I've tried League or online StarCraft or Age of Empires competitively, and most recently, the most toxic environment closest to that is kind of the Rocket League community right now. Part of it is because there's a lot of DDoSers, hackers right now, making the game like unplayable. They just force you to quit the game. Yeah. But the quick chats and things like that. So I've done something very similar. I haven't avoided the game, but I've turned all of that off. And partly, and I'll admit this vulnerably, is because it brings out a side of me that I don't like. Like you kind of fall into the culture a little bit. I don't think I say anything derogatory, but will I say nice save when it wasn't a nice save after I've scored? Yeah, because you feel this like need, this competitive side, and and this was years ago, but I feel like it's an interesting point that Andrea brought up too, which is if you come in with the expectation this is the culture, it's not going to hurt you as much. Right. And this is what I did. I was like, if I'm going to play Rocket League, this is the ancillary, consequence of it. I'm going to have to deal with some of this. But it also, I'm like, it kind of sucks. Like it does. I have a thin skin too. I'm sensitive at times. And I'm competitive. So you put all that together, you want to win or you want to do better. And then you're like, but these are nowadays probably people like 20 years younger than me trolling me. Like, what do I care about what a 12-year-old kid says about me?
Right.
But you do, and there's a part of you that wants to, especially if you play with friends, like I don't want to be the person holding everyone back. But once again, it's an online game. It has zero consequences.
Yeah.
So, but they do have this power. They have this power
They do.
to hack into your heart, hack into your brain.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've had good experiences on it too, where when I used to play, I played EverQuest Online Adventures on the PS2.
OGs, MMOs.
Yeah. And I got this accessory that was a keyboard with a controller attached to the keyboard.
Yeah.
And that would plug into the PlayStation 2. And so, because, on an online game, you had to type, but, they weren't common on the PS2.
Right.
And so I remember... this is not really
I remember you
talking about it, but do you remember seeing that at my house?
Yes, 100%.
So I'd sit on the couch with this thing and type and then game, and it was kind of cool. But I remember having lots of great experiences in that game where there seemed to be, and who knows if this is rose-colored lenses or if I was just oblivious to some of it because I don't even know how old, probably like 14 or something. But it seemed like it had a positive culture around it because that was a game where you could do some of it solo, but a lot of it you'd have to group up, have like a party of 4 people.
Yeah.
And so I'd play with strangers quite often in that, and it was often very positive. It was a very cooperative experience. And maybe that's part of it too. It wasn't competitive, so you're working together. But there was a sense of like, even if you didn't know something about the game, people would just help you out or give you advice. And so it's just strange to think back. I had these great experiences, and I remember my parents would ask me lots of questions because they didn't, it was new, right? They didn't totally get
Which
like,
stranger
what
are you talking to?
Yeah,
Who is
right.
it? Yeah,
Which like now as a parent, I'm like, man,
no.
they had a lot of they give me a lot of grace, a lot of patience,
absolutely.
because you're becoming friends with total strangers.
Well, and Andrea's story of a creeper basically sliding into her online DM, like
it's so common.
And I wouldn't want my daughter, son, anybody.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's scary. That's a very
Absolutely.
scary thought.
Like, cyber safety.
And that's why I asked her, I was like, do you think your parents could have done anything? And it's kind of true. It's really, especially at that time, parents had no idea of what the online world was like. And we're lucky we've got this hybrid world where we know what it's like, but it's scary to think.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me what you think of this. As we're having this conversation, I'm reflecting on these experiences in online games. I feel like, because one of the things we talked about in the interview is that, like, what are you bringing into it? So how you as a whole system are interacting with the game, I think dictates a lot of our experiences. And so I think it's not even just the meaning you attribute to it, but it's just all of, I don't know if we want to call it baggage or just everything you're bringing to it, I think can get activated. And that's where, on one hand we can say, oh, it's just a game, it doesn't matter. But where it does matter is you are still you, and these things can get activated. Like, I think it's that sense of, even recently, as silly as it feels to admit, but I was playing Final Fantasy 14 a couple years ago, the online one.
The online one, yeah.
I did a lot of it solo because I didn't have time to do a lot of it, but I grouped up a few times. But like, I got like really anxious because I was playing a tank, and the tank has an important role, right, to protect the party.
Yeah.
But I got really worried of like, what if these people, like, what if I don't do a good job? What if they realize I don't know what I'm doing? And that, I realized, this is very the therapist in me, but that thought pattern, I was like, oh, that's something I've wrestled with and worked through in my life.
It's like a personal thing that you've
yeah.
experienced.
What if they realize I don't know what
I want to take care. I want to be
totally.
I want to make sure my friends are protected. Now you're a father. It's the same.
Yeah. So that anxiety got activated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Does that make sense? Is there something there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think like Andrew's experience and my experience, and I've seen anecdotally the experiences of people who fall into possibly a path that's not healthy for them. They're usually finding some sense of meaning, some sense of community, and love, right? Like they're like, I want love. And if you don't have those things in a healthy environment, you'll seek them from other sources. And so, and even this is what the research paper said too, right? we shouldn't be really talking about video games as a dichotomy, right? As you mentioned in the interview as well, but we should be looking at what is the individual relationship to that video game, and what part, like what are they using it to fill? You know, what part is missing in their life? If you had a strong sense of friendship, community, you probably wouldn't be as buffeted by the trolls or the need to make people feel good, because you're like, whatever, I'm having a good time, but I'm going to go play soccer with my friends later, or I'm going to meet up with them, and that sort of thing, which tends to usually happen when you get older and older, because when you're younger, friendships mean so much and the stakes are so high, but we don't always end up making friends. Like, I know my experience, I was really lucky to run into you later on, but prior to that, I didn't really have a strong sense of friendships. And in my own personal path, I was making decisions or just really not living up to my full potential. And even Andrea mentioned, she was like, once her friends started to focus on school, her grades went up.
Yeah.
You know, and we have a similar story. Once I met you and I was like, oh, school's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, my grades literally went up, you know,
Yeah.
and I had a healthy inspiration in that. So I know we had said in an interview, and I know some parents are going to listen to this and be like, what do I do? And I'm like, I think, and I'd love to read more research on it, but I think that's one of the things you can do is really create a nourishing environment for your kids. So the video games are just one aspect of their identity, but it's not their entire aspect of their identity.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well said. Psychologist approved.
Thank you.
No, I agree.
Stamped.
It's something we can do more research on, and maybe a future episode on. But getting into that battle of with your kid of like, play video games or don't play video games, I think it often just goes nowhere helpful.
Oh, for sure.
But taking this, you could call it an indirect approach. I think in a lot of ways it's direct, but it's indirect towards a video game. And okay, how do we focus on all these other elements? And
Totally.
because I know one of the papers we were looking at talks about the relationship of getting basic psychological needs met and video game addiction.
Yeah.
And then they also talked about this mediating role that meaning, a sense of meaning and a sense of responsibility played. So that all of these aspects are playing a role in somebody's possible relationship with video game addiction. And so I guess part of what it made me think then is that becomes a tricky balance. Are you meeting a bunch of those needs through the video game? And is that bad? I don't know. I don't think it's automatically bad.
No.
But maybe that's kind of what it's looking at is, do we get all of our needs, meaning, responsibility met through this one venue?
Yeah.
Whether it's video games or something else, I think that's where we might look at how do we diversify a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about now the female perception, which was the focus of Andrew's research. And we're two dudes, once again. Disclaimer. Another episode where we got to add
people
that
didn't realize yet.
Yeah.
We're two dudes.
But the toxic environment is really, I think, this may be debatable, so come at me in the comments. But come at me. But it feels as if it is a fairly male-dominant consequence, right? It's like the video game world is male dominant, and the misogyny is vectored one way. And the sort of subtle example is that when we say gamers, we expect it to be like a dude.
Yeah.
But then we label a female gamer as a female gamer as if they're separate from the gaming community.
Yeah.
And then of course the insults, the words and things they often use are misogynistic in nature. So what do you think? Like, is this like inherent in competitive games? Because it seems to be exacerbated in games like CS and League of Legends and Rocket League. Anytime there's some sort of competition, it's like the environment is awful, you know? Or is there something else going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting thing because, as Andrea was saying, the split is almost 50-50 now of male versus female identified gamers. And so we know that there isn't this huge skew, but it does feel like there is a skew sometimes. And I don't know, maybe that's a holdover from older days where it was a more male-dominated hobby. And so that some of those norms in the gamer culture just got carried over. But I think you're onto something. The competitive space seems to be where a lot of it comes up. And it kind of like Andrea was saying too, it's that idea of the low-hanging fruit. Of you take video games out of it, you take any situation where there's going to be trash talk or trying to tear down somebody else, you're going to go for the easiest thing you can find.
So for female, it's your gender. For a minority, maybe your color or whatever. Yeah.
And even if some of the actual objective facts have changed, that there isn't this huge domination of males in the gamer space, that was a narrative that's been there, and the narrative continues even if the facts have changed. So that becomes an easy thing to make fun of. But you don't belong here.
And what women often have to do, as I was reading those research papers, is either they have to code switch pretend they're not
Yeah.
a woman online. So they literally hide their voices or anything like that, or their gamer tag. They have to prove their worth through competency, which is how they earn respect, or they avoid. They just don't play those games with like that full online community, which is like, that's like the saddest result of it. It's like we just ostracized a whole group of individuals because of it. But I think like I'm trying to think about like, well, okay, so what can we do? What are some solutions? And we're not going to have all the answers. Obviously, we're just riffing here, but
We can't fix everything,
no,
unfortunately.
we'll try. But I think part of it is like to change the culture starts with one person. Because I've had experiences where, like let's go back to the trolling that I've received. When it's negative, it hurts, obviously. But when when a stranger does give me a compliment or, gives me in Diablo, they might give me their loot or something like that, and they're just willing to drop it. It's the opposite. It's like a very positive experience because you're like, it's not my friend doing this. It's a stranger that went out of their way to help me with this quest.
Totally. It's that act of kindness.
Yeah.
And I think those, like the one voice being an act of change can be very true because it feeds into a new kind of culture. It's one of the things that it's funny that I brought up feeling anxious playing Final Fantasy XIV because it's one of the things that game is actually known for is having a very positive gamer like player culture on the whole.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool about that is that's one of those things that just like nobody can set that. Right? Really. I mean, people can influence it, but it's not like they release the game and say, and only nice people can play this game. But there was a culture that happened. And then now that it's become known that that's the culture, people who want to be part of that culture are drawn to the culture and it makes the culture bigger.
Exactly. And then they speak out against people who are aberrant to that culture. They call each other out on it, which is such an important part. I see that in real life interactions, especially as we've been talking about creating more inclusive spaces. It's like someone makes an off-color joke, everybody has to call it out, or at least one person does, and then you don't have to, ostracize them, but you call out the improper behavior, and then the culture shifts.
Totally.
Yeah.
It can be as simple, and I shouldn't say simple. Sometimes it's hard to speak up, but it's that rather than just laughing along, it's saying something.
Yeah.
Even if it is, I think I'll have this conversation sometimes even in therapy where people are like, well, how do I don't want to create a whole fight or a conflict. And sometimes that's necessary, but sometimes it's also just even saying something, right? Even though like, ooh, that was a weird joke.
That wasn't really that
and
funny,
then moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's not a huge conversation, but maybe it's just that little...
You de-escalate through humor, through deflection. Some of the stuff we learned with Kenzie Gordon about bystander.
Totally.
You are a bystander even in the online community.
Yeah. And I recognize those kind of interventions aren't always possible.
No.
And it's sometimes it's even a place of privilege to be able to do
100%
a less conflictual intervention, but just to throw that idea out there.
So what about moderators? What about the developers themselves? Like Andrea touched a bit on this. Like you could find consequences and punishments for people. I know Overwatch, you could give people you could report people. Do you think those things matter? You can give people thumbs up for their actual play, but then actual just being a good team player, and it's like positive reinforcement. And I don't know the statistics or the research if it's actually changed the culture up a bit, but do you think that helps? Like,
yeah, I mean, I hope it does.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure if it does because, we'd have to see some research on it, I guess. But I think it's an important role, and I think it's good to have it because even just having that sense of, okay, there's somebody, there are people kind of helping keep an eye on this. There's even just having a bit of that sense of agency of if something happens, there's something I can do. There's something I can report it to. And, I think every online game now has kind of community standards
sort of reporting,
of a way to report. I know one of the papers, actually it might have even been Andrew's thesis itself, but was talking about sometimes female identified gamers don't feel comfortable going to moderators because they feel like they haven't been heard or listened to. And so, I mean, that's a whole issue in and of itself. But I think it's something that helps just people who are keeping a watchful eye and just giving that reminder of, hey, here's our standard in this community. Here's the expectation.
If you follow through with it.
Yeah.
You have to. Yeah.
Here's what here's how we talk to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think it's part of social etiquette, right? Yeah. I know one of the papers was talking about that too, is there's, again, I think it was Andrew's thesis, that there's sometimes a pushback of, again, we see a lot of that in our world today, right? Like free speech.
I know.
Which doesn't mean freedom of consequences.
No. Or freedom to hate. So,
Right. Yeah. And it's just that idea of, well, I should be able to say what I want. You shouldn't have to police what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's not policing what people are saying. It's social etiquette and being part of a community, which any community has standards, whether they're written down or not.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
No, well said. Great answer to that. Yeah, I think it's an avenue. I think there's it's like a multi-pronged approach. You need to do a whole bunch of different things, but it's definitely, having this conversation has made me more mindful of things I can do in IRL, and in the gaming community. I don't really play online games anymore, so I'm not really surrounded by that, but just a reminder that if there is something that may come off as a joke, but it's not, what can we do to create that inclusive space, and what responsibility that I have, if any,
Totally. Yeah, and always just that message of being aware of the power of your words.
Totally.
It doesn't mean, again, that it's not that pushback of I can't say anything. No, it's just being aware.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes making a choice.
Yeah, and there's some people you have rapport with, and that's a different consequence and etiquette.
Yeah.
And there's some people you don't. In an online world, you have no rapport.
Yeah.
So you can't really get away with the same level of jokes or anything like that. And ultimately, I think also what gaming developers can do is they can represent female identifying characters in more positive lights. So we're not overly sexualizing them, objectifying them, or anything like that, to change the narrative around it.
Yeah.
And that seems to be happening. I think it was Andrew's paper talking about how when you see more powerful women, you're less likely to diminish their power. And they obviously exist. And so we need to see more of that,
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think there's been some great shifts in that.
Yeah.
Of so many well-written, well-rounded female protagonists
Totally.
in games. And I think that's a really positive thing. And hopefully there's been a shift in online spaces. I hear through the grapevines that there has been in at least some of them over the years, but it's hard to say. I'm not as in them anymore. I think it's in it. The other thing I just wanted to point out is what you were saying, that competitive piece, I think, is huge too, because it's not just in games, right? It's that whole, it's just locker room talk.
Oh yeah, dude, it's my rec league soccer games.
Right.
Like the stuff that people say, or I stopped playing those sports because I'm like, my face as an actor is like what I'm trying to sell here, and people will want to hit your face, and you're like, why? Like, this is a recreation game. Like none of us there's zero consequences to this. We have families to go home to.
Yeah.
But people will say things or do things or behave in really like unpredictable ways, to say it nicely.
Yeah. This is the human condition. One of the other things I just wanted to throw out there is, we talked about a bit about it in the interview, but that one paper that talked about the false dichotomy. Are games helpful? Are they not? And that really, it's a much more complex intersection of the individual and games and the culture of games. And I just think that's such an important piece. I feel like we say this every episode, that it's complex, it's nuanced, but that's so important because it is. We are complex as individuals. Totally. So we bring this whole complex system with games are a complex system. And that intersection is complex. How many times can I say complex in a short amount of time? And I was just thinking about it again, applying it for myself, that games, I spent a lot more time playing games themselves previously in my life, and so they played a certain role through that. And right now with young kids, I don't have a lot of time to play the games, but it's the culture of games that still have a role in my life.
Totally.
Like us doing this, being able to do this podcast, talking about them. Like, I'm not playing a ton of video games, but I'm talking about them. I'm engaging with the culture of video games. Yeah. And that I get a lot of enjoyment and meaning and purpose out of doing this with you.
Yeah, exactly. That same paper talked about how people derive meaning from not just playing the game, but being part of the communities, going to conventions, following their fans, their actors, all of those things. You create an ethos around it, and we're all looking for identity. We're all looking for a place to call home, and it can be a perfectly great place to call video games.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, should we end as we always do with our skill
Yeah,
testing question?
Yeah.
All right. So, video game skill testing question. Okay. You have heard of the game Super Mario Brothers?
This is the. How long am I going to do this for? Okay.
Good one. Okay. Good joke. Okay. The bit landed.
It landed for a long time.
Okay. Super Mario Brothers. Did you play Super Mario Brothers as a kid?
Kinda.
Yeah. Okay. How far did you get?
I didn't beat the game. I always watched my cousins play it. Yeah, call back to Andrea watching her siblings. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've never really. So you're talking about the SNES version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I mean, there's the NES.
Yeah, the
NES.
the classic
And then I think they did like a
Super Nintendo
version
Yeah.
of it. But yeah, the classic Mario Brothers. Okay.
Yeah.
Not 2, not 3, not World.
Got it. Okay. My heart's racing.
How many levels are in Super Mario Brothers?
How many levels?
Yes.
Oh man, this is tough. There's the beginning one with the green backgrounds. You're hopping over anything, the pipes.
You're gonna visualize every level.
Yeah, I have to do what you did with the.
Yeah.
No, okay. Then there's
Do you want
the
a hint?
swimming one. There's the desert one. There's Bowser's Castle. I can picture the loop, the map, as you go through.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many there are because I also didn't beat the game or unlock them.
Do you want a hint?
No,
Okay.
I don't want any help. Using every ounce of brain power I've ever summoned in my entire life for this moment. 12.
Not even close.
What? 25? It's like in the.
Okay, but are you thinking worlds or levels?
I'm thinking like when you go to the world and you go to the. That's the level.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Because
there's
Bowser's
levels
Castle has
within
like
the
5
within
levels.
the
Yeah.
world.
No, I wasn't thinking that. I was
Okay, do you want to
the map?
Yeah. One also, because remember the original Super Mario Brothers didn't have a map. You might be thinking of like Super Mario Brothers
Nintendo,
3
yeah.
or
No, but SNES did when you came out. Didn't you go to? Oh no, maybe it
no,
didn't
not the
have a
first
map.
one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So not even close.
Okay, do you want a hint now?
Yeah, give me a hint.
I don't know if it'll help.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the hints is remember there's worlds and levels, and when
Okay.
we're thinking original Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
the first one,
Yeah.
it's simple math. It's just math to figure out the number of levels.
It's simple math.
Yeah. You
But
just
I
gotta
would,
do math.
I would need to know the variables.
Well, yes.
I don't know what they are. So what is it? If it's like 5 worlds and each world has 5 levels, then I know
Right.
there's 25 levels total. Sure,
Yeah.
that's simple math. But I
Right.
don't know how many worlds there are, or how many levels in each world.
That was too hard a question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. Okay, I'm gonna say each. I think there's 10 worlds because they probably want to keep it even, and then each world they probably want 3 to 5. So I'm gonna say 30.
Wow, that was really close,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
I liked your deductive
Yeah.
reasoning.
Yeah.
The answer is 32.
Okay.
Yeah, because there were 8 worlds.
8 worlds.
And there's 4 levels in each world.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
3 levels and then Bowser's Castle
Yes.
within each of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, you get like a 60% on that one. I
Fine.
think.
That's passing. It's not enough to make my parents proud, but it's passing. All right. We talked about meaning
Yes.
in this. And I want to ask you a 2-part psychological question.
I'm already nervous. Okay.
Okay. There is a theory in psychology that also turned into a therapy modality that's about meaning.
Yes.
Who is the father of that? That's a little hint. What is it called? And that's it. Those are the 2 parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think I know.
Yeah.
I think, but I'm nervous because I'm a psychologist.
Yeah, I
and
know.
I'm gonna sound like a dum dum if
No,
I get
you
this
don't
wrong.
have to.
It's not the type of therapy I practice.
I
so
know. Yeah,
just
yeah.
everybody give
Yeah.
me a break. Viktor Frankl,
Nice.
who
Nailed
wrote
it.
the book Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah. Great
Wonderful book.
Great book.
And I believe the type of therapy is existential therapy. Is that right?
Very close. Existentialism or existential therapy is the umbrella term, and Viktor Frankl is one of the scholars and philosophers / psychologist or psychiatrist underneath that.
Okay.
And there's other existentialists.
Yeah.
But that's not his specific title.
Oh.
It's a little. I'll give you a hint. It's like a Latin word.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now I'm just trying to think of the phrase from Uncharted that's on his ring from the video game. Sic Parva Magnus or something. No, I don't know.
No.
No.
Do you know what the Latin word for purpose is?
No.
Logos.
Logos.
Logos therapy.
Okay.
Logotherapy. Yes.
Interesting.
Purpose meaning. Yeah.
Okay, I have heard of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I did not.
That was hard. That was hard.
That
if you
was
didn't know,
hard.
if you didn't know, yeah.
I feel like existentialism is a pretty good. I was
Oh no,
I was in the ballpark.
You got what? Yeah, you nailed it. You
Yeah,
nailed it.
I know
I'll,
old
I'll give it a
Victor.
70%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I win.
You did better than me.
Nice.
Well, sir, this was a fantastic episode. Always having a blast talking to you about this stuff.
Absolutely, me too. All right.
Well, a pleasure.
a pleasure.
A pleasure, good sir.
That's a good way to end it. I like that.